Welcome back. I'm so glad you decided to join me for another video. Today I start by opening this super value pack of 50 A2 size card bases and envelopes. I'm hoping that I can finish all 50 cards before December and get them all mailed out on time this season. Today I'm using the Simple Stories Vintage Rustic Christmas line. I have the 6x8 paper pack, which I'm flipping through here. And I also have the Woodland bits and bits and pieces, which I will break out here in just a moment. Generally, when I have a good amount of ephemera, the first thing I'll do is I will lay it out on a tray so that I can get a good look at everything and put it into some categories. So I take both of these packages of ephemera and do that. One starts with some trees, some woodland animals, and some Santa Clauses. And there are a few other little animals like some bunnies and some squirrels and deer. This second pack has some wooden ornaments, some sentiment strips, little what look like paper tickets that have different holiday sentiments on them. They are, all in all, pretty cute. Of course, you can find links to all of these supplies down below. I also grabbed 3 circle punches, a 1 3/4, 2 1/4, and 3.5 inch punch. These first 2 are EK Success, and the large one is Fiskars. So now we just go ahead and take the paper pad apart. There are duplicates within this pad, and at first I decide what I'm going to use the front of and what I'm going to use the back of and kind of lay them in that order. Some of the cut aparts and then the bigger images I set aside. Some of these larger images are going to make really nice number 10 or slimline cards, so I'm going to set those aside as well as the other cut aparts. And I'm going to go ahead and grab 4 sheets of the 6x8 and go ahead and cut them down. I start by slicing each sheet from 6 inches down to 5 1/4, and then I turn it on its side and cut 2 pieces at 4 inches. I lay them in a pile to the left here so that I have the orientation of each card base. You'll see that I use the front for one card and the back for another card. So because I film on my phone, I asked my husband to set an alarm for 1 hour. And I had hoped to get all 8 of these cards done in 1 hour. Of course, that would have put me at some math that's like 8 minutes a card. Yep, less than 8 minutes a card. And that didn't happen. But I go ahead and start by assembly line style, adding the card mats to the card bases, and then I go from there. You'll notice as I'm gluing these mats down that I am deciding which orientation they are. Of course, some of them have an image that is one orientation or the other. So those, of course, spoke for themselves. And then there were a couple that I had that I decided I would do in portrait, even though they could be either way. For this first card, I just pick out a deer and a poinsettia, and I go ahead and punch out a circle. I wasn't going to punch out the deer's antlers or anything. I was just wanting to see what the different sizes of circles would look like behind his head. So, and then I just layer it up. These first couple, I put some foam tape on, some of these foam strips that are from scrapbook.com. I really like them. They are 1/8 of an inch wide. But after I made the first couple, I thought that I was just creating more work for myself. I am trying to get quite a few of these done. And also, when you send cards through the mail, less bulk is preferred. I really get fussy with these guys trying to decide where to put them. And here's where I break out those foam strips. Of course, when you're using foam, if you take the backing off of both sides, the foam will bend easier. So that's what I've done here for the most part, especially on the deer, because he had quite a few curves. Or they, I don't know. And here's card number 1. So next I get started pretty much the same way. I pull out some of my favorite pieces from the Ephemera pack. This one includes a Santa with a large bag of, I'm assuming, toys. Of course, if those are for me, then they are kittens and Diet Cokes and craft supplies, right? Maybe some coffee. Again, I use another circle punch and use an alternating color. Here I have a couple of those 1/2 inch strips that I had left over, or they were actually 3/4 inch, and I cut them in half. But I made a little fishtail or ribbon tail with that, just to break up some of the darker color. Lay down the flower and the other two, and I'm good to go. So not sure what I was thinking, but I glued the Santa on the circle first, and then I really had to kind of jam him under this flower, so that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to get some of the pieces under the flower petals and some over the flower petals, so decided a little heart would be nice there. And again, I use some foam on that. And then I also use foam on this little file drawer label. And there we have card number 2. Of course, I head right back to my punches. I start with a 3.5-inch circle punched out of some black plaid, one of the larger Santa Claus images. So this ends up not being a complete circle. There is a flat portion, so I'm trying to figure out how I can hide that entire straight line with the Santa Claus. So I figure that out, and I go ahead and glue the circle down and then glue down Santa. And then I found this really delightful piece of ephemera that looks like a table setting with a pine cone and a lantern. And then we have card number 3. Now this card starts in one direction and then does about a 180-degree turn. But again, I'm just finding the images that I like, and I, of course, grab a piece of black cardstock and punch a circle. But as I go back to my tray, I am immediately super excited about this little postage stamp piece. So I put that up in the corner along with a little heart. And I figure that's where postage stamps go, so I'm not going to move that around too much. I just go ahead and glue it down. And then I really liked this grouping of trees. It has a very interesting shape, and I looked at a couple of the different animals to put in that little corner. But then I decided that I really wanted my bunny to stand out a little bit more and be highlighted. So I went back to my punches. I punched a small circle out of this sage green gingham and glue that down. This is another one that I cut at an angle to kind of shove under. And there's card number 4. So at this point, the 1-hour alarm went off and I have to move on to other things. I only made 4 cards in the allotted time. If you have a second, comment on which one is your favorite. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget, safety first.